Herminio Vazquez is working for IOVIO with the ING Mortgages Netherlands tribe. He does a lot of interesting things about testing big ERP and CRM implementations and modeling complex test scenarios. And he's got some really cool stuff he's going to talk about today. So, Herminio, take it away.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Just gonna greet briefly greetings from the Netherlands to all the audience. What a great segue from Diego to talk about quality and speed. And I think that is, I guess, the perfect introduction to the topic that I would like everyone to talk about today. Well, first of all, I hope that your families and everyone is okay, and thank you, Parasoft, as well, for organizing such a great event. And today I will talk about the subject that Diego has been stressing, and this quality and speed. And it's about accelerating application delivery with service virtualization. I'm going to walk through this presentation in a sort of in the way of a hero's journey, where we always see kind of change always winning the battle against testing. But today the presentation is going to invert the roles a little bit. Now, I would like to think that you are here today because, well, you would like to hear what is going on in the industry. But I think personally that the best time or the best takeaways is when you have a shared agenda. So I wanted to share, rather than just the success story, as I said, more the hero's journey about this battle between testing and change. And I think that you are here today if you share or you have these words resonate to the current challenges that you are facing in your team. First, I think that you should have continuous testing in your agenda. And by continuous testing, you might be already thinking about, okay, the first element on this agenda should be automation. And whether you have team capacity constraints or your test cycles are lengthy or taking time consuming, or you have for a long time been staggered with test coverage, and this again quoting about the type of metrics that you will use in your teams, or perhaps your teams are recurring still to error-prone activities, or people or humans doing things that perhaps machines can do better, or repetitive tasks. I also think that you are here because you are struggling with your environments and you are unable to reproduce business scenarios, or you are, as we are repeatedly saying, dealing with a very complex information technology or a very complex landscape. You have a high maintenance costs for your hardware software operations, or eventually you are dealing with failures due to external factors not directly related to your testing strategies. And some of them can be, for example, configuration discrepancies in your environments. And last but not least, I think in your agenda, or if this words resonate with your agenda, you might be thinking as well that it's equally important to think about the data that you use for your testing. Eventually, that requires either moving data from production environment, depersonalizing it, or desensitizing the data, or having specific master data sets exhausted during your testing cycles, or the inability or the limitation to parallelize testing due to these data constraints. It can be also that you have external systems, perhaps you are consuming services from a third party that limit your ability to test. And finally, this harmonious dance about release cadences, of knowing at what time you can test according to the release of other dependencies in your landscape. And I guess by presenting you with this agenda or these sort of challenges that we have to deal with in ING, we basically pose or raise this question to ourselves, to our team, right? Can we test our business applications at any given point in time? And I'm not sure what the answer you have for this, but for us, the answer when we started the journey with service virtualization was absolutely not. So this is where I would say in this hero's journey, we started to, let's say, getting the call for adventure and trying to sort of understanding what were our allies and our enemies. Service virtualization is by no means just a tactical solution. I think it has to be a strategical decision and a strategical solution for your teams to empower testing and embracing this quality at speed. Now, in our scenario, one of the drawbacks, I guess, for adopting service virtualization is that our teams had a very high technical debt on automation. Somehow the testing suites started to grow and became unmanageable, or literally the coverage were not directly related to the impact or the benefits, and the business couldn't quantify the benefits clearly. In the other hand, we have also unmanageable physical test labs. We have to maintain, let's say, a series of laptops for testing, and that was also not really a way for us to conduct testing. There were a lot of things that were really making our test very weak. In the other hand, other teams were using service virtualization in other departments, and that gave us at least a credibility as well of this is not new. Virtualization in some scenarios is being confused with virtualization of hardware, so also the concept of the term itself doesn't really help. The other aspect is that we put data at the heart of our strategy, and somehow, let's say, data-driven decisions in the context of our team were really important. And finally, agile methods, or the way of quickly implementing or turning around with the solution was fundamental for us to move forward with our implementation. Now, we really have a big challenge ahead of us. This challenge was mainly because testing was just always let's say the horse of the bad guy, right? It was always seen very bad, like the time required to complete our testing cycles was time consuming. Somehow the team started to accept failures, right? So if for some reason some external system was not available, and then we perceived some errors or some failures during the regression suites, the team started to just accept them, right? To say, okay, it happens because the other system was not available at this time. There was no perceivable value on quality, even though in today's economy, the ability to personalize and quality are probably the main drivers for adoption. It was not really perceived by the business. We were also in a transition and evaluation of multiple cloud vendors, and also embarking in the or the ING private cloud, the self-provision cloud. And therefore, even the cloud itself had some inconsistencies and let's say, downtime that affected us in the implementation of our solutions. As any other team, of course, and especially with agile environments, there is not such a concept anymore to decentralized budget. It's more about smaller allocations of budgets for specific or smaller teams. And more than anything, I think that the thing that I could stress the most is about that complexity always wins, or it was. And it was really frustrating. It was discouraging for the team that at some point, environments, testing data, or the automation, it always had a difficulty. And well, I guess that I wouldn't be here today talking to you, just drowning you in all this drama about the challenge, but actually turning it around and explain how we overcome this particular challenge. As Diego mentioned in the previous presentation, I would say phenomena today are not the simple things, especially on automation and technology. And we approached this problem in a different way, and it went beyond the common process, people, and technology approach. In this approach, we first tackled one of the most critical parts for us, were our environments. And in this approach, what we try to do is to provide a holistic view of what is required, or what was required for us to bring testing at speed, or to embark in this continuous testing. And one of the elements that we encounter, perhaps the most relevant for our strategy to be successful, is to treat our environments not as gangster, that nobody can touch, or as perhaps people with a DevOps background, you could hear you should treat your environments as pets, but more as cattle. I think that we took that from DevOps, and we said, okay, we should be able to not be afraid or scared about losing or rebuilding our environments. We shouldn't take that as for granted, and we need to do or act upon these things. The other element in our approach was the scheduling. Sometimes, and I think we all hear about this, there is always a timesheet for testing. I don't think that successful teams that want to speed up your ability to test or your increase the quality of your business applications must have a timesheet. I think you should be able to remove those timesheets and see testing as a continuous and not as a discrete time allocated for this particular activity. Within the scope, I think what helped us to succeed in our endeavor was to can and create a virtualization matrix where we specify which elements or which interfaces in our complex data landscape were going to bring us the highest value and the more credibility towards the presentation of this solution to our business. We also baseline these virtualization activities by specifying the quotas of time that we were saving, or the packages of time that we were saving in each of these individual implementations of services. In terms of process, the process became very clear. We have to deal, first of all, with the smaller environments and think about service proxies. Service virtualization allows you or enables you to implement these solutions and to let's say support in this area. At some point, your teams will challenge you, right? You will always have your rock stars that will say, well, you know, why we need to implement this new technology when testing an API is just 3 lines of code, or perhaps it's just something that can be done in code. But think about it. You don't want to use the skills or let's say your resources. You would like to use your resources smartly. So in this case, I would say it's important also to enable your teams to understand the complexity of what you're trying to achieve. The idea of data, I think any successful test manager or quality lead today should understand that if you are spending 80% of your time in this automation or magic automation framework, and you are not putting attention into your environments and your data, I think your chances of succeed are going to be quite limited. And in that regard, what I think is that environments and data together with automation are the trifecta for winning this battle, right? So if you put these things together, I think that you are in a way better position to succeed in your continuous testing strategies. And finally, it's about trust. I think the final element in this magical or approach is to think about that what you are trying to build with this is trust, to find this sweet spot of competitive advantage or reputation or quality overall that will help your stakeholders to deposit their trust in the solutions or in the technology that you are implementing. In our case, what this meant is to become truly digital and to put, for instance, risk policies as an algorithm. In our scenario, we came with a very easy formula that I think anyone in this industry should use, which is about saying that risk is just impact times probability. And if you use this, I think, let's say, deriving any approach, considering what would be the impact and the probability for events to happen, then it will help. Now, it's in 20 minutes, it's very hard to cover in detail all of these aspects in this approach. But if you are really interested on going through the full details, I think you can read the full history about all this approach in the Parasoft blog. Every single aspect mentioned in the previous slide is explained in detail, so you can go ahead and read it over there if you are interested. Now, again, I mentioned that it was about building confidence and credibility. To concretize about these aspects, what helped us is, or in our scenario, the implementation of service virtualization came along with implemented containers as services. So team members were able to deploy their own service solutions in an isolated environment so that they could consume test data at their own will. With this, we also remove data dependencies. So the idea of reducing the complexity of the environments with the integration with other solutions came also at one side of the benefits. We have this early validation for our specific test cases. The isolation of the environment, so the idea to deal with the smaller pieces of our complex architecture perhaps was the biggest achievement. And overall, the factual, not only bring a qualitative approach to the conversation, but a quantitative approach to our conversations in terms of testing faster. And how that was, let's say, quantified. I'm using here the proprietary curve is used for safety in the work, but I think it pretty much matches, let's say, the journey that we have to cross from being reactive at not knowing what was happening on the environments, what kind of data was being used for the use it, and always be reactive to what was happening beyond just the testing or the automation. Then to cross to these dependencies of other environments or other data sets or other teams provisioning data for our teams to test. Then to go down to be completely independent and self-sufficient of creating our own synthetic data sets, our own isolated environments, our own interfaces, our own end-to-end business processes. And then finally, interdependent to provide a catalog of virtualized services that not only serve our own purpose, but serve other purposes as well. For us, service virtualization was the vehicle for faster test delivery. By using service virtualization, we didn't compromise on quality, neither wasting time. It was absolutely the catalyst for accelerate our testing activities. Overall, it helped us to maintain the concept of lean in our environments. And more than anything, it put data at the heart of our test strategy. And I think that was one of the key elements that helped us to succeed in this implementation. And with that, I don't have anything more than to thank everyone for joining the summit today. I hope that you have a great takeaway, and I'll pass it back to you, Arthur, in case that we have questions from the audience.
Thanks, Herminio. We're a little behind, but we did have one that was just asking about which solutions were the most helpful in solving your challenges.
I guess the containerization was one of the most important ones, because that, again, reusing the words from Diego, it was sort of forgetting about this centralized service or capability, but more empowering testers to, let's say, drive their test scenarios without the implication of external teams or dependencies. So in this case, your environment and the data and your test cases are at your own disposal. So I guess the idea of changing the hat of the tester from the person that always needs somebody else to more a driven professional, I think that can accomplish his or her activities standalone. I think that was a great way to succeed as well.
Awesome. Well, great, Herminio. Thanks. Very interesting presentation. And if anybody has further questions, just funnel in, and we can always make sure that Herminio gets them and gets back to you.